Barack Obama is no stranger to the spotlight, but this time, his name is tied to a chilling story. One of Obama's former bodyguards has been found dead just 24 hours after posting a mysterious video online. The shocking timing of his death has sparked a whirlwind of speculation, with many wondering what secrets the video might have revealed. Was this just a tragic coincidence, or is there something far more sinister at play? Affordable Care Act and the You Can Keep Your Plan promise. When Barack Obama announced the Affordable Care Act, or Obamacare, one line really stuck with people. If you like your health plan, you can keep it. It was a comforting promise that made many feel safe about their current health care. However, when the law took effect, a whole lot of existing plans did not meet the new requirements and were canceled. Suddenly, people who had believed they would be able to hold on to their plans found themselves scrambling to find new, more expensive coverage. Imagine hearing your favorite phrase, only to later open your mailbox and find a cancellation notice instead of good news. This unexpected twist sparked anger across the country. Critics argued that the promise was made without a proper plan to ensure everyone knew about the changes. They felt the government oversold the benefits of the law and then left many Americans in a difficult spot, especially small business owners and families who had counted on stability during a time of change. While the ACA did extend health coverage to millions who were previously uninsured, the broken promise of keeping your plan became a heavy shadow over that achievement. For many, it wasn't just a policy misstep, but a loss of trust in leadership. This controversy turned into a rallying cry during debates, as opponents pointed to it as an example of promises made without full thought for the real-world impact on everyday lives. The Benghazi attack. In 2012, a tragedy unfolded in Benghazi, Libya, when the U.S. consulate was attacked, resulting in the deaths of 4 Americans, including Ambassador Chris Stevens. For many, the event represented more than an isolated attack. It quickly evolved into a political storm that would follow the Obama administration for years. Initially, the incident was described as a spontaneous protest following local unrest, a description that would later come under heavy criticism. Critics argued that the true, premeditated nature of the attack was downplayed, suggesting that the administration was more concerned with the optics during a politically sensitive time than with fully explaining what happened. This confusion led to heated debates on news channels and in Congress, where questions about security shortcomings and transparency were inescapable. Many felt that those in charge should have taken stronger measures to ensure the safety of American personnel, and that the initial communications were too vague. Investigations were launched, and in many public discussions, the Benghazi attack turned into a symbol of missed responsibility and cover-ups. For those witnessing the controversy unfold, it appeared as if the nation's top officials were more intent on protecting their image rather than providing concrete answers for the loss of lives. Ultimately, Benghazi became a long-lasting reminder of how quickly a tragedy can transform into a heated political debate, leaving many Americans wary of official statements and frustrated by what seemed like unanswered questions. IRS targeting scandal. In the thick of political battles, the IRS targeting scandal emerged, leaving many scratching their heads and voicing concerns about fairness. Back in 2013, the IRS was found to have taken extra steps when reviewing applications for tax-exempt status. And guess which groups were under the magnifying glass? A good number of conservative organizations, notably those affiliated with the Tea Party. For people who believe that government agencies should remain neutral, this was a big red flag. The notion that your political views might lead to extra scrutiny was unsettling, and it fed into a narrative that government power was being used for partisan gain. Critics argued that such actions were not about upholding rules fairly, but about picking targets based on ideology. Even though later reports suggested that some liberal groups were also caught up in the process, the initial backlash had already set the stage for lasting distrust. Instead of seeing a government agency simply enforcing regulations, many saw a clear example of overreach and political bias. News outlets covered every detail, and the story quickly became a favorite discussion point among opponents of the administration. In neighborhoods, cafes, and online chats, people debated whether the IRS was simply doing its job or if it was steering the conversation by targeting particular groups. Operation Fast and Furious. Operation Fast and Furious sounds like it could be the next big action movie, but it turned out to be a very real and messy government operation. The plan was as ambitious as it was controversial. Allow the sale of firearms to suspected straw buyers in order to follow the trail to larger criminal networks, mainly Mexican drug cartels. On paper, it seemed like a clever strategy for taking down big-time illegal arms traffickers. In real life, things didn't go as planned at all. Instead of tracking the criminals, the operation ended up losing sight of thousands of guns, and some of these weapons were later found at crime scenes, even linked to the tragic death of a U.S. Border Patrol agent. When the details emerged, many Americans were left dumbfounded. The whole episode felt like a series of unfortunate events driven by poor oversight and miscommunication. Rather than a story of precision and control, Operation Fast and Furious became a case study in how even well-intended plans can unravel when details are overlooked. The scandal sparked intense debates, with members of Congress demanding answers and accountability. For everyday citizens, it was a confusing mix of a law enforcement effort gone awry, and a stark reminder of how government actions sometimes stray far from their intended course. This controversy remains one of the dark spots on the law enforcement record of the Obama years, illustrating that sometimes, in the world of politics and policy, even the most creative strategies can lead to unintended, and sometimes tragic results. VA waitlist scandal. Few topics hit home quite like the VA waitlist scandal, a painful subject for the nation in general and especially for veterans and their families. In 2014, troubling reports emerged showing that some Veterans Affairs hospitals weren't keeping accurate records of wait times. Instead of being open about how long veterans were waiting for medical care, some administrators created hidden or even fake wait lists to mask severe delays. For many veterans who had given their all for their country, this revelation was heartbreaking. It was not merely a clerical slip-up, but an indication of deeper mismanagement. Veterans, who deserve immediate and compassionate care after their service, were left sidelined, with some even reportedly dying while waiting for their turn. The scandal struck a nerve across the country. Families and community members became outraged, demanding that those responsible be held accountable. Critics argued that, in trying to cover up the real problem, the system not only betrayed those who had served, but also eroded public trust in the government's commitment to care for its heroes. In response, high-level officials were forced to step down, and promises of sweeping reform echoed through the halls of government. The shame felt by many was not just for the inefficiency, but for the apparent lack of respect shown to veterans. National Security Agency surveillance and Edward Snowden's revelations. Then came the NSA surveillance saga, a controversy that changed how many people think about privacy and security. In 2013, Edward Snowden, a former NSA contractor, shocked the world by leaking documents that revealed just how extensive government surveillance had become. Suddenly, many citizens learned that the government was collecting data on phone calls, emails, and even internet habits on a massive scale. For people used to thinking that their private lives were just that, private, the revelations were hard to swallow. The administration defended these programs, arguing that the surveillance was essential to prevent terrorism and keep the country safe. However, critics and privacy advocates felt that these measures were an invasion of personal freedom, an overreach that was hard to justify even in times of threat. The idea of being constantly monitored made many uneasy, sparking debates in living rooms, online forums, and even classrooms. It wasn't just a case of numbers and data, it struck a deep personal chord. After all, who wouldn't want to feel that their personal conversations and online searches were kept to themselves? In the aftermath, some laws were re-examined, and calls for better transparency and oversight grew louder. The controversy left a lasting impact on public opinion, making it clear that the balance between national security and individual rights is always delicate and often hard to get right.